All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. As usual, let's begin, inshallah, with the recitation of Surat Al-Fatiha silently from your heart. Make the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places His nur and His knowledge directly into your heart, inshallah. All right, alhamdulillah. Nice to have you all back. I hope you're all safe and your family and loved ones are all also safe, inshallah, in these challenging times. Does anyone have any questions or anything you'd like to talk about specifically, or should I just continue with the flow that we've been going on?
I don't have any questions, so.
Me either.
All right. In that case, we'll continue our talk about the 7 obstacles. Just to give you a context, these are the obstacles that kind of come in the way of a seeker of the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as believers, our objective in life actually is, besides eating, drinking, sleeping, and mating and dying, is to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Allah created us to know Him, and to know Him, you gotta pursue it, you gotta seek it, right? And so that is basically the intention behind this program, is to kind of get everyone to be motivated to make seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a priority. And the way you do that is by going within. Man arafa nafsah arafa rabbah. The more you know yourself, the more you know your Lord. So Allah is not like you don't know Him from the outside, you actually know Him from the inside, which is really interesting, because the more that we purify our insides, the more Allah reveals to us right from the inside, right? And so that's why a lot of the work of the spiritual path is looking inward, looking at our own character, our own actions, our own thoughts, our own intentions, so it's a lot of inner work, a lot of inner reflection, not external, right? And so last time we talked about this concept of the taqwa of the ayn. If you haven't heard it, you can go back to the YouTube or the podcast. But we talked about how the nafs, when it's at a low level, the nafs al-amara bis-su', like the lower self, then you're looking at all sorts of things, you're following your shahawat, you're trying to please people, you are you're getting angry, all of these are signs that the nafs is still in a lower state, right? You still don't have control over your nafs. You don't have self-control, self-discipline. You don't have the ability to say no. And so we talked about how the ayn is something that we actually, Allah's given it to us as an amana, as a gift, and we need to take care of it in terms of how we use it, what do we see, what's the intention behind what we see. Today we're going to be talking about the tongue, okay? Taqwa al-lisan. And what's interesting is the tongue and the ears, the scholars say, they're actually connected, right? And both are open, there's like an open avenue to the heart, subhanAllah. So the idea is to, as you're aware of these different faculties, because like the windows to the nafs are all the like holes in the body, technically, right? So the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the private parts, these are all shahawat related things. And so one by one, we're trying to address each one. Today we're talking about the ears and the tongue. And the objective is to, as we purify, as we do tazkiyah of this nafs, then it starts getting purified and purified and purified through this idea of taqwa, which comes from wiqaya, which means to protect yourself, to be cautious. And the more cautious you are, the more quwwah. Notice, taqwa has the word wiqaya in it, as well as the quwwah factor, right? So it's as if protection means power, right? And this, we can see it today in our day-to-day when you talk about like countries. The more powerful a defense system is for a country, the more strong a defense system is for the country, the more powerful it is, right? And so that's why they go hand in hand. Defense, security, and power go hand in hand. Same thing for you. When you have a strong defense mechanism, we have good systems in place for your defense, then that gives you power, it empowers you. And the opposite is also true. When you don't have this, when it's just weak, this defense mechanism is weak, when you're just opening your windows, the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the private part, everything is just open, and you're just allowing your nafs, the lower nafs, to do whatever it wants, then guess what? That's weakness. That's where the nafs gets corrupted. That's where there's disease. There's all sorts of shayateen working, and you're really opening it up for everybody. And that's why Allah gave us the contract. He says, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. So this nafs has this ability to kind of have fujur, which is like openings, right? Everything is open, in, out, adi, open access. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. And taqwa is the opposite of fujur. Taqwa is no, these openings are sealed and you're using them responsibly, right? So let's talk about the tongue here. So what is considered, first of all, obviously, what are we supposed to hold our tongue from? All that is haram talk, or talk that is ugly, right? And so what are the classic examples of this? Is on top of the list, there's many, but al-ghiba is one of them, right? It's to speak about someone, about something that's true, which they don't like, right, behind their back. So this is ghiba, backbiting. Very, very ugly and serious crime, right? It's equivalent to eating the flesh of your dead brother, basically, So it's a pretty grotesque imagery there. Namima is also there. It's when you namima is naql al-kalam, right? For the purpose of causing fitna. So someone said something, and someone said something about someone, you go to that someone and say, by the way, did you hear someone said, you won't believe what that person said about you. And so why are you telling that person? Why are you spreading these talks? And something someone said, you're going and telling A, B, C, D, E, F. You're telling different people what that person said, either to hurt that person or to expose and cause enmity and hatred, right? So that's namima. Namam, also in the Quran, Allah calls it, right? Hammazin masha'in binamim, right? Masha'in binamim, just walks around causing namima, just causing people to hate each other and causing conflict. It's very, very ugly habit. And then you have fuhsh al-qawl, when you use your tongue for filthy talk. And today, we see this very commonly in TV programs, whether it's Netflix or Apple TV or even the music industry, right? A lot of obscene language, and our young kids are being exposed to that. And what happens is, when you get used to this, then it really corrupts your state. Also, judgment. Judging others and making comments, ridiculing others. These are some of the sins of the tongue. There's al-kadhib, lying, big crime, right? Iman and lying don't go together. And then another one is al-fadh, which is to expose the flaws of others, right? Rather than cover them, you are exposing them. Ifsha al-asrar also, when someone tells you a secret, you go and tell it to others, right? They told you not to tell anybody, and you promised, and you swore you won't tell anybody, or then you go and tell them. So you see this ability not to control. You don't have the ability to control your tongue. You just want to say it. It's like a shahwa. You like sharing gossip. You like sharing the hot news, and it makes you popular, right? And it makes people like you because you're always a source of their hot news, right? So that's really what's happening inside. Is the disease. The root cause is you are seeking to please people around you, And since people like gossip, you be a source of that, right? And then, of course, argument, excessive argument, shouting, screaming, like abuse, verbal abuse, bullying. This is part of also lisan. Shahadat al-zur is when you testify falsely, right, in court against someone. Also, another sin of the tongue is al-man bil-atiyya. So you do a favor to someone and then you keep reminding them. By the way, do you remember the other day when I helped you with a loan? Remember the other day when I did this for you and that for you, right? That destroys your good deed. And of course, ridiculing or commenting on people who are less fortunate than you, also, like with humiliation and disgracing them, putting them down. Um, Also, accusations is part of that, right? Accusing others of something without, and spreading rumors without verification, without checking on the facts. And then the last one here is al-wu'ud al-kadiba, false promises. You just promise left, right, and center, and you're not careful about honoring those promises. And this even applies to small things like, I'll call you back in an hour, right? And you call back after 3 days, or I'll see you at 6, and you show up at 7. Small things like this, and in our society, it has become so normal, but like this actually reflects on your character, right? And so a muttaqi is someone who is really careful about what's coming out, and he is honoring his tongue. He's realizes it's a blessing, and of course, chooses what is pure. And of course, whatever that is prohibited for the tongue to say, then it is of course prohibited also for the ears to hear. That's why I told you they're both connected. And then of course there's talk that is just, they call it in the Quran, it's al-laghu, which is non-beneficial talk. So you couldn't be doing anything haram, but you're just talking wasteful talk, like excessive wasteful talk. And like of no benefit, and so they say that the ears as well as the eyes are manafid maftuha ila al-qalb, which means what? They're like windows into the heart. Okay, and كل ما تنظر إليه تنطبع صورته في قلب. Everything you see, an image of it gets imprinted on your heart. Everything that you hear also, the heart kind of absorbs it, and we know now today from even metaphysics that sound has vibrations, and sound. I'm sure you've heard of the experiment where the doctor, he like through a microscope, he looked at different water particles, and like when you would say I love you, I love you, I love you to this water drop, the pattern changes into a beautiful shape. Whereas if you say I hate you, then it just, the design gets all corrupted, right? And so there's this, a lot of science is backing the idea that sound, what the words we choose to use, have an impact on the outside as well as on the inside. Same thing applies to what you are listening to. That's why, even today, like the lyrics, like that people are listening to, a lot of people don't pay attention. They just like the music. And music is the key to the heart, by the way. So it's really nice music, and I love music myself, right? But what's dangerous is that it unlocks the heart. Really good music unlocks the heart, and guess what? Then the lyrics have an easy access to your heart, right? So if you're not paying attention to the lyrics, guess what? You're taking it all in, and it is affecting you, right? So someone who likes sad songs, right? Without being aware, you're just listening to all that negative energy going in and you keep repeating that song. It actually has an effect on your subconscious mind, on your state, on your nafs, depression, and all sorts of things. Same thing with sad movies, or movies that have a lot of like just sadness and depressive kind of themes. So very, very careful about that. That is what a muttaqi does. You're careful of the content you consume, careful of the people you hang out with. What are they going to be talking about? You're careful about what you say. And so, the metaphor that they give is, imagine that there's a storm outside, and the windows in your home are all open, and you're sweeping the floor because there's just so much dust coming in, right? There's a dust storm outside. You're sweeping the floor. You're cleaning up all the areas, the hall, the bedroom, and this, but you don't close the windows. What do you call someone like that? They're insane, right? Because, like, what are they doing? Hello, step one, close the windows. Step two, sweep. And so that is exactly the concept of taqwa here, right? Like, you want to purify yourself. You want to do tazkiyat al-nafs. First, seal the doors, seal the windows, control the eyes, the ears, the tongue. Like, be careful about this, because without taking care of these windows into the heart, purifying the heart is yani, not possible. Simply not possible. And
Fahid, I
yeah,
have a sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Many of us who ask this, like, how do we protect ourselves from hearing these things? What if you're not the one who's like negative and stuff, but you constantly hear it? And I agree that these things can impact like your soul and like how you think or see things. How do you protect yourself?
Yeah, I'd also like to know that, please.
Yeah, great question. So especially nowadays, like, you got to be very creative. I'll give you an example of our family. Like, um, on Fridays we get together. I mean, not like a whole big family, but just my sisters. And obviously the topic of the week is, how many people died and Corona and all of that. So, and it was getting too much, and especially this is getting really like intense, right? And these energies, very very dangerous. They're like pendulums. So what I decided was, my wife recently got a board game. It was a nice Sira board game, so it teaches you about the life of the Prophet ﷺ in a board game. So it's a fun game that the adults and children can all play together. So I was like, Yalla, this is the time today. No more Corona talk, getting the game. And we had a blast. Honestly, we played for like 4 hours nonstop. They were here till like 12:30 at night, and we couldn't stop, and we actually didn't stop the game, right? We had to stop it in between. But what I'm trying to say is be creative. Now, of course, certain relations you cannot cut off. So what can you do is, either if you can give them advice to change it in a creative and nice, polite way without hurting them, that's great. You can creatively escape, oh, I have a phone call, oh, I'm feeling tired, I'm going for a nap, just literally escape. And another tip is, you're there but you're not there, right? So you're like doing dhikr or something, start doing dhikr, istighfar, tawbah, and like reject it internally, see? So your focus is somewhere else completely. I don't know, grab a newspaper, a book or something, turn your focus to something else. Dhikr is great also. Might make you look weird doing dhikr in a group setting, but you gotta be creative. You gotta somehow turn the topic into something fun. Oh my God, you guys, watch this new comedy movie out or something, and change it into something positive. But don't like try to kind of lecture people about it, because it's not gonna work, right? People want to vent. People don't know. People are not aware. Maybe they're not as aware as you are, and so by being the lecturer, the preacher in the house who's always saying don't say this, don't say that, they don't say that, they don't like to hear it, never works, right? So use it creatively with hikmah, with wisdom. Not easy though, but try your best. Yeah, I hope that answers your questions. And they say احفظ سمعك من القبيح حتى لا تألف القبيح. So when you're exposed to a lot of filthy talk, filthy shows, filthy music, تألف القبيح. What does that mean? You get used to it. It becomes normal for you. And there are people like that, for them, foul language is normal. It's part of their like normal talk. seeing haram scenes, obscene scenes, pornographic images, whatever, videos, scenes, in series and movies. For them, that it's normal, adi, and they're sitting and maybe their kids are there, or astaghfirullah, and like for them, they become desensitized to that. Even the lyrics, you become insensitive, right? So a muttaqi is extremely sensitive, right? And like the metaphor I usually give is like, so I have this white shirt on. Now, because it's completely white, right? The slightest stain on it will disturb me, right? Like I'm gonna see that it's gonna, like this black dot here, or this ink, or it's gonna show and it's gonna disturb me, because like generally it's clean, right? So that one thing will be so obvious and it will show. But if I let's say I've been I don't know, doing some crazy Spartan race, and like my shirt is, I'm wearing the same shirt, it's all muddy and sweaty and all sorts of stuff, right? Then guess what? Like when I look at it, it's not gonna disturb me anymore, right? Because the whole of it is destroyed, right? It needs to entirely go into the washing machine, and so I'll be cool with it. I'll be cool with all the dust and the sweat and the mud, because خلاص, it's all corrupted anyway. So adi, So that's the example here we're trying to say is, you don't want your heart to be so blackened and filled with darkness that it just covers your heart, and then you're like, yeah, adi, and I'm listening to that song, what's wrong with that? I'm looking at that scene, adi, what's wrong with that? I'm using the F word, this word, that, adi, and what's wrong with you? Come on, adi. I'm not bad by using these words. It doesn't make me a bad person, But so that's the idea. A muttaqi is very sensitive, very peculiar on what he's seeing, what he's watching, what he's saying. That's taqwa. Being cautious, extremely cautious, and I would say obsessively cautious. Because what is at stake here? What's at stake is the most precious thing that you have, which is your heart. So you want to be obsessively cautious about it. It's no game. My heart is the most precious thing. I will not allow anyone to corrupt it. Okay, because this is what connects me to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more pure this is, the more Allah will, the more this gets me to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, So it's a different mindset, a different priority you have. Your inner heart, your purified heart is your priority. Purity is your priority. Okay? And then also a dua, right? So like, let's say a lot of people are saying stuff and this and that, and or talking negatively. Make dua for them, that Ya Allah, guide them to be more energetic. Maryam, you have a question? You have your hand raised.
Hi, yeah, I just, it's fine. I mean, you could have continued, but I'll ask anyways. I noticed a lot of times people start venting. So they start to talk about a situation, but at the same time, when they're talking about the situation, they don't realize that they're actually talking negatively about a person. So it's like, how do you, okay, I know that we can distract them, like you said, and then shift our focus, but it's just so common that I'm not sure what to do in this situation. So, I mean, if you could touch on that, that would be great.
Yeah, so an indirect way would be to kind of share a video about ghiba, or something like that. Like this way, you're not lecturing someone; an expert is lecturing them. We could, because a lot of people, like, unfortunately, especially in the Muslim space, right? Like, as Muslims, we magnify sins like drinking alcohol, hijab, zina. These things are like big sins, whereas ghiba, namima, lying, backbiting, adi, judging, adi. What people don't realize is actually it's the opposite, right? So when you are doing ghiba, namima, gossiping, backbiting, you're actually violating the rights of others. These are serious crimes, right? Whereas, like, other sins, like or shortcomings, or you're distant from Allah, you're not praying, you're not, whatever. This is between you and Allah. He will forgive you for that, right? But when it comes to others' rights, it's yeah, like we said, it's challenging because not everyone is at the same level of awareness. But using wisdom, I would say again, be gentle with them. You don't want to be a lecturer. But like for example, at work, I'll share with you, there are certain people in our workplace that are known for that kind of. They just come to your office and all they do is gossip or negative energy, and after a while, you actually sense this negative energy in people, and so you just avoid those people. You don't want them to be in your circle. You choose your friends wisely. And yeah, sometimes you just can't stop people, and so you walk away. You choose your environment, because again, this stuff affects us, right? Maryam also asked like about how do we protect ourselves from hearing swears. So people around you who constantly speak like that, you actually eventually don't want to be around people like that. So changing them is a long journey, right? But and we're not judging that they're bad people. It's just that energies attract each other, right? So naturally, if you have a pure energy, then you will not be attracted to someone who excessively swears and has that language. You want to be around people who speak beauty.
Fahad, the thing is, there are some people that you just can't not be around, because I know a lot of people that it's within their own families. So what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, so but like I said, with people you can't avoid is make dua for them. And of course, you can't judge them, you can't lecture them. Make dua for them. If they're really close to you, find like a nice day where like they're in a good mood, and give them just real heart-to-heart advice. Otherwise, share a video with them. Share the science behind it. Sometimes people don't like advice, spiritual advice, but they like science. So just share with them the experiment video, right? About the water thing I told you about. Forget the name of the guy, the water experiment. Can anyone share with us the name of the scientist who did that? Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
Sorry, repeat again, please.
Okay, so
What class?
there was a scientist who did a study on the effects of sound on water, and does anyone know what I'm talking about? Masaru Emoto. Okay, that's his name. Let me just show you some stuff here. Masaru Emoto, Japanese author, did this study. Yeah. Look at this stuff. So sometimes sharing science itself is enough. Look at the effects of like this picture here is love and gratitude. This is you disgust me. When you say you disgust me to someone, that's the shape it takes on. This is eternal. This is peace. This is thank you. So look at the shapes, subhanAllah, and it is really beautiful, beautiful. So Masaru Emoto, this is science. You can share it with someone. Maybe buying a book also. I would recommend Erroneous Zones by Wayne Dyer. Beautiful book to start with for a beginner. Wayne Dyer, Erroneous Zones. Very, very beautiful book. So I hope that answers your question. But again, there's no shortcut. And sometimes, don't forget, the Prophet ﷺ's own uncle, Abu Lahab, used to swear back, and curse him and humiliate him. And he couldn't escape, right? What would the Prophet do at night? Pray for these people, right? Rather than hate them and curse back, he would pray for them, that Ya Allah guide them, And some people you just can't change. That's their choice. And you being around them is actually, they are your biggest teachers, right? So they're like, you need to be able to kind of not judge them, and at the same time not be affected by them, you see? So there's this, being, it's called judgment-free awareness. You're aware of the fact that they're doing something that's harming themselves, but you're not judging them because they don't know better. At the same time, you have this compassion and mercy towards them. So you're not trying to prove or try to change them forcefully. You're just being gentle with them and caring, So Amina says, sometimes when someone sees how well you speak of others and how nice a person can, you get inspired and stop. They could start. Yes, exactly. So Amina, very nice tip there. Sometimes actually, like when Allah, inshallah, all of you are on this path of spiritual quest, you become the beacons of light in society, right? So your energy will, like, even if there's a room full of gossip, when you walk in, people will stop gossiping, just out of respect for you, right? And you control the energy in the room, because the energy of light is much, much more stronger than the energy of darkness. So that's also a beautiful point there. Thanks, Amina, for that. But these are good questions, very practical and very real. They say, اللسان من أخطر الأعضاء الحسية ومن أشرها تأثيرا. One of the most dangerous is the sound. And subhanAllah, even the shape of a tongue looks like a snake, right? Like, they say it's كالثعبان يلدغ الآخرين وأصحابه. It really, like, subhanAllah, it's sometimes just a sentence or a word can hurt someone so bad it could cause them to commit suicide or to be destroyed forever. Like verbal abuse, sometimes more dangerous than a sword, right? And so talking is a shahwa, just like the eye has this shahwa to look at things that are that provoke its desires and temptations. Same thing with the tongue; it loves to talk, and it has this, it wants to talk and it wants to express, and so you gotta control it by not speaking about things that are inappropriate, or by not talking too excessively about things that are not beneficial. So there are people who are excessive liars, or obsessive liars, right? They're just like, every sentence you're just lying. So very, very sad, But if you get used to lying, it becomes normal to you, then you've lost your humanity. So what else?
Fahad, once
Yes. Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you.
No, sure.
So I encountered a few things along this topic a few times, and I don't know, maybe I tackled it in the wrong way. So I have a friend, I love her so much. She's very kind-hearted وكل شيء. بس I know that she doesn't mean to gossip, but a lot of when she vents, مثل ما Miriam with us in the call mentioned, and sometimes the vents, somehow it just twists into a gossip session. And like at times I ignore the message because I don't want to give in, not because I don't care about you, but because I don't see a point into this venting gossip session. So sometimes I just ignore, or sometimes I just change the subject immediately, but then should reply back and say like, hello, like you didn't respond to this. And then I say, sorry, خلاص, let's just put it behind us. And then she thinks like, oh, you don't care about what this person did to me. Or let's say she becomes awkward with me for a few days. خلاص كبرنا على الموضوع and these things. But like sometimes people just don't get it. No matter how old they are and how mature they think they are, it's still this personality that's شوي childish, but at the same time they get offended إنه يعني for example أنا حسستها إنه you know what I mean لا؟
Yeah.
فساعات أحس now I just need to like butter her up and be nice again and for her to be normal, just for her to think that I'm not a bad person. I'm just thinking, I just don't want to give into the conversation, but at the same time, I don't want things to be weird. But then every time I try to stop her and حدودها, it just, the awkwardness comes, but I still love this person, you know? She's not negative. She just loves gossiping.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people, like you said, they do it unaware, like they're not aware of it, right? They're not aware of that they're gossiping. For them, it's venting, and that's Shaitan's way of getting them victimized, right? And so, yeah, the idea is that Allah actually wants to empower you by taking you away from victimhood and, you know, bullying others and making fun of others. Those are all signs of weakness. That's all signs of victims, actually, right? The bullies are the biggest victims, actually. But yeah, people have different levels of awareness, and this is part of our journey and part of our duty. And if you really care about this person, then you figure out a creative way to help them, you know. And some people you cannot help them. Some people, yeah, it works, yani. But sometimes the advice coming from you won't work. So, like I said, use a third-party expert, whether it's a book, a YouTube video about ghiba, and Ahmed Imara has some really good stuff about this. Dr. Ahmed Imara, if they understand Egyptian Arabic, he's really good because he's a teacher of psychology and energy, and he talks about these things like negative energy, especially ghiba and stuff. So yeah, it's tough. It's not easy. It's tough because you want to listen to them, but you don't want to be carried away with that. And so you can listen, but then guide it in a different way. But it requires wisdom and creativity and trial and error. So yeah, I feel for you, but it's requires training and practice. And some people just actually you just distance yourself from them. Like I said, if okay, I love them, but I don't have to. They don't have to be in my close circle. I still love you, but you don't have to be in my close circle. And some people, I don't have to love you. And you're simply out of my circle because I choose. You are the sum of the 5 people we hang out with the most. Allah says, "ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد." Imagine every single thing we say, there is an angel writing down every single word. Every time. And so like people who just talk excessively, wastefully, like يعني لغو, you're just getting the angel busy writing fluff, writing things that has no substance. Do you really want that on your books? And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw liyasmut." Whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him say something of benefit or let him stay quiet. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, actually, one of his characteristics was that he was often very quiet. Right? He was a quiet person. Not excessive talking, and would say something of benefit, would give advice, would answer questions, but he was relatively a quiet person. And there's a reason why Allah gave us 2 ears and 1 tongue. Gotta be talking less, listening more. And so, yeah. Go ahead, please.
Also, someone once told me something that I found so pretty, like beautiful, but I don't know if it's true. Like they said, and I remember the person related it to Islam. That's something maybe one of the prophets said, that the way you see someone is how they see you. So like if you see someone as ugly, they see you as ugly, or vice versa. But I think that's something bad, like so Mari, it's something so important. Like you can't, I think like negative talk and like some things can be very addicting, you know, at the same time. Is that true that when you see someone bad, they see you as bad?
Yeah, so it's called projection. Yeah, absolutely, right? Or mirroring or projection. That's why I said your friends, they're your biggest teachers. Your children are your biggest teachers. Your spouses will be your biggest teachers. Why? Because they're the one who like will teach you what triggers you, you know? And so you then get to know yourself better and you start to refine yourself better, right? So how do you know your weaknesses? Is through a mirror, and your close ones are those mirrors, right? So through them, you realize how you're reacting, how you're triggered, and that these are all signs for you to work on yourself, right? So if your friend is a backbiting friend or a gossiping friend, and you end up judging her, then you got to watch yourself, right? And that's you got to be careful about that. But eventually, energies match, right? So you have to understand, why am I attracted to this person? Like, what's going on with me? And instead of putting the focus on her and that she has to change, you have to ask yourself, why am I in this company? Why did I choose to go out with her? And it's not about judgment, it's just about choosing your company. The Prophet said, Al-mar'u ala dini khalilih. You will be on the way of life of your associates. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. And so watch who you hang out with. Literally, this is prophetic advice. And so this doesn't mean that you have an ego and you feel you're better than others. And no, خلاص, يعني your taqwa, your heart is a priority. You cannot please everybody in life. You can't make everybody love you. That's the reality of life. And the Prophet ﷺ wasn't loved by everybody. He had enemies. He had people who wanted to kill him. In fact, the majority wanted to kill him in Mecca. So being liked, being popular, being the one who was always ears and listening to advice, and unless you're trained like a therapist and stuff, it's it's very difficult and very dangerous, right? So
Fahad, I have a question.
yeah.
What do you do when you feel that? So, for example, something someone said kind of provoked you, okay? And you want to reply to them, and you feel that there's anger building up in your heart, okay? Because of this thing that they said that was like, it really touched your core, okay? And you just want to reply, but you don't want to reply in anger because you don't want to be put in that kind of situation. So what can you do to kind of like minimize the anger inside you? I know ساعات dua works. It actually always works. But ساعات, it's just like you. What kind of advice can you give about this?
Yeah, so ideally the ultimate goal would be that words don't affect you, right? But that's like when you really master your kind of consciousness level, right? That other people's words don't affect you. But one way to respond would be to say thank you for your opinion or interesting point of view, and sometimes actually stopping and reflecting on what they said and asking yourself if it's true. Because sometimes we actually get triggered and get angry because it's true, or there's some truth to it. You see, so responding by anger won't fix the thing in you, right? So sometimes that trigger is actually a gift. It's a rasul. It's a message for you that, listen, maybe it is true. And the fact that I'm getting triggered means I need to work on it, right? So you thank them. That's why you thank them. Thank you for your opinion, interesting point of view. And you try to see their point of view. You try to see where they're coming from,
But I mean, Fahad, when it's just genuinely wrong,
Okay.
Like, it's wrong in your soul. Like, that's a very wrong statement that they made.
Yeah.
So how would you respond to that?
Yeah, so Allah says, أعرض عن الجاهلين, walk away, give your sides to those who know better, and make dua for them, make wudu right away. Wudu does magic. Say say the statement, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. You know, because it
Okay.
is nothing but shaitan. That's actually, shaitan is that fire inside your heart, right? And so to like literally put off that fire, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. But don't just say it with the tongue. Mean it, feel it. That you're
Okay.
seeking Allah's help to remove this fire from your heart. And then make wudu. Pray 2 rak'ah, you know. Change your position. If you're sitting, stand up. If you're standing, sit down. Or
Okay.
lay down or something. Yani. These are some tips there. Yeah. You know, this idea about angels writing down your words and your sayings. Some people think it's a bit stressful and that like there's surveillance cameras always around you. But let me give you another angle, another framing. You know, so you know how like when really important people talk, then you have journalists writing down what they say, every single word, right? And so actually Allah is honoring you, like Allah is showing you how important you are. And the fact that He has dedicated an angel to write down all the beautiful words that are coming out of you so that you can be praised for these, so that you can be acknowledged for them in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's actually an act of, like, Allah is honoring you by dedicating an angel for you. Otherwise, if you were worthless, He would make the angel busy with someone more important. But the fact that an angel is with you is actually, and it can be seen also in a positive way. That every word you say has value, right? And so it's either for your benefit or it is something that will affect you in a negative way. So you want to get that angel busy with writing good stuff, yeah? And be like, it's embarrassing to make that angel write negative stuff, right? I mean, and the Prophet said, he was asked, أي المسلمين أفضل? Who is the best of the Muslims? And he said, من سلم المسلمون من لسانه ويده. The best of the Muslims is the one who من سلم المسلمون من لسانه. يعني he doesn't use his tongue to attack others and cause harm to others, either with his tongue or with his hand. And you know, once a Sahabi named Mu'adh ibn Jabal asked the Prophet ﷺ, what deeds do I do to help me enter into Jannah and remove me far away from the hellfire? The Prophet ﷺ told him, you know, the 5 pillars and all that thing. But then he said, shall I tell you what's the peak of all of those? ألا أخبرك بملاك ذلك كله? You want me to tell you what's the ultimate? He said, yes, of course. So he said, watch your tongue. He said, watch your tongue. Right? That is the peak of it all. So notice this. لا يستقيم إيمان عبد حتى يستقيم قلبه. Your iman will not be straightened until your heart is settled. And your heart, ولا يستقيم قلبه حتى يستقيم لسانه. Your heart will not be settled until your tongue is settled. And you know, the last hadith here is من يضمن لي ما بين لحييه وما بين رجليه أضمن له الجنة. The Prophet said, whoever can guarantee me that which is between the 2 jaws, i.e. the tongue, and that which is between the legs, i.e. the private parts, ضمنت له الجنة, right? Like, so there's a guarantee of paradise. So may Allah, you know, Azza wa Jal, inshallah, give us the strength and the, you know, wisdom and the courage to be more aware of how we use our tongues and our ears, and to, inshallah, make us of the muttaqeen, people who are cautious, obsessively cautious about the purity of our hearts. And may He help us in this path, in this pursuit. And may He also guide all of the people around us in our circles. May He make us instruments of spreading this knowledge and this wisdom and this light in our communities. Ameen, ameen. So we'll end with a dhikr, inshallah. Gently close your eyes and start breathing. Loosen up your shoulders, all your muscles. Inhale and exhale deeply from the nose. as you inhale, imagine pure cold light entering into your heart. And as you exhale, imagine dark hot smoke leaving your heart. Very good. Let us repeat Ya Salam together, silently, without moving your lips, making any sound. Be aware of your heart. And just repeat Ya Salam. And try to feel the peace that Allah gives you through this name. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the source of all peace. And once you find this peace in your heart, allow it to amplify and expand and go deeper. Keep repeating Ya Salam. Very good, mashallah. So I highly recommend you have this daily habit of reciting Ya Salam at least 17 times once a day. It takes less than a minute, just the way we just did it. Inshallah, it will help you maintain that awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it will help purify your heart. Bismillah, inshallah. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful week. Be safe. My du'as for all of you and your families. And inshallah, we'll meet again next week. I'll be around if you have any questions. All right, assalamu alaikum.